Hello, traders. Cousin Vinny coming to you from the closingprint.com, Sunday, the 11th of February, 2024. In this edition of your weekend video newsletter, we'll discuss the S&P 500 and other indices, S&P closing at all-time highs, with the call wall shifting higher, and most sectors pointing to a potential follow-through this week. The New York FANG index closed at all-time highs with RSI above 70. MACD clearly shows bulls are in control and stochastics has been embedded. These 10 stocks that we've been trading clearly outperforming the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ and point to potential follow-through this week. In addition, the S&P 500 closed at all-time highs with the call wall shifting to 50-50 with major support at 5,000, RSI above 70 showing strength of trend, MACD and stochastics both showing the bulls have the baton going into this week. The Qs are almost up 30% from the October lows. Closing at all-time highs, RSI is showing strength of trend, with small cap sectors outperforming, pushing the index up 2.5% for the week, with the rate of change bullish, pointing to a potential retest of the recent highs. So we'll be looking for follow-through this week in small caps, potentially adding to our tailwind for this week. Breadth indicators turned bullish, and volatility is near recent lows. In addition, NIMO and NAMO are showing a trough, leading to the possibility of a follow-through in the short term, with the NASDAQ showing green elder sticks and the NASI index turning higher, forming a potential turn into this week. New York Stock Exchange Composite McClellan Volume Oscillator is also bullish, coming out of the green zone, looking for a move towards the red zone before we get overbought again. With those 2,000 stocks above the zero line, producing more new highs than new lows on an ongoing basis, the black line rising, and looking for a higher high this week. Advanced decline is also about to make a new high, and the New York Stock Exchange is above 17,200, giving us green elder sticks from Tuesday on, finishing at highs on Friday. When we're in doubt, we always look at the New York Stock Exchange for confirmation. We see Tuesday through Friday above average volume, and the trend is clearly bullish. Junk bonds are bullish, despite the fact that the 10-year yield did make a move to the upside last week, showing some potential follow-through in the yields. If we start to move higher, that would create something of a headwind for Monday and Tuesday, so we need to keep an eye on this, along with the U.S. dollar in the short term, which is trying to make a higher high, producing a higher low last week. MACD and stochastics are a bit overbought, so there is a possibility that the dollar could fade a little bit or consolidate more. That would help equity bulls, while at the same time commodities manage to stay in a range-bound condition, giving more of a bullish tilt for equities if this continues to move sideways. That said, crude oil and gasoline products have been showing some strength, so we'll be watching Brent crude for any additional bearish indicators for equities. If this continues to move higher this week, we'll be keeping an eye on crude oil, with gasoline ripping higher, closing at $2.57 with obvious bullish action on that gap up on Wednesday, which will add to prices at the gas pump into OPEX this week. Overall, bonds, currencies, and commodities are neutral, depending how these assets trade this week. Consumer discretionary also outperformed last week, turning this indicator back up, which is bullish for equities, resuming the trend that started at the reversal in 2023 and continues to suggest that we could see a follow-through into the spring. Biotechs are neutral to slightly bullish. Real estate saw buyers pushing price action back up towards the 50-day. Watch your favorite real estate stocks. Transports are also breaking to new highs. Volume was above average, looking for the truckers, airlines, and rails to outperform, which is currently being led by semiconductors, outperforming the rest of the markets, with NVIDIA pressing to new highs, along with the technology sector, XLK closing at all-time highs, with the financial sector stocks trending. Volume, obviously, institutions buying over the last 3 to 4 weeks. Energy still in its descending channel along the 50 and 200-day moving average, a bearish indicator on Friday. With a contraindicator in consumer discretionary, this continues to move higher. If you recall the consumer discretionary versus consumer staples, that's pointing to a follow-through potential into the spring, with retail stocks outperforming, the retail sector blasting higher last week, headed for previous highs and a potential breakout of this cup pattern into Friday's OPEX, adding to our bullish tailwind to start the week. Stocks for this week from the IBD 50 and a relative strength scan show some potential for follow-through in some sectors other than tech. While tech does have a good showing with AMD, Amazon, Google, Team Atlassian, with stocks from various groups set up looking for continuation, like Advanced Micro Devices pushing off of its 921-day moving averages. We are bullish. 921, 50, 200-day are all pointing up and to the right. RSI has drifted a bit lower. We have consolidated over the last few weeks, so the potential for a break higher on above average volume started on Friday. Watch for stochastics and MACD to turn up, with companies like ACIW, ACI Worldwide, together with its subsidiaries, develops, markets, installs, and supports software products and services to facilitate electronic payments. Clearly can see price action moving back above the 50-day moving average on Thursday, Friday, RSI rising above 50, stochastics and MACD turning. All we need now is a little bit of volume. Looking for this one to continue higher. The company reports again on February the 29th. Last time reporting revenue growing at 18.4%. Earnings growth is 766%. Definitely something to consider into earnings again reporting at the end of the month. ACI Worldwide, straddling the software, tech, and financial services industry groups. Cleveland Cliffs needs no introduction. Steel stock looking good, with a possibility of a follow-through bounce on Monday, with stochastics hinting at a potential turn and RSI rising. Volume was above average on Friday. We'll look for more volume and the whole sector to move higher next week, with Nucor following through a couple of weeks ago, reporting earnings, a little bounce at the 9 EMA, 921.50, 200-day is moving higher. These steel stocks look like they could follow through as the sector continues to show strength and push to all-time highs. Here's Steel Dynamics, volume above average last week. MACD, stochastics, and RSI are all bullish, along with price action, supporting a potential follow-through in Cleveland Cliffs this week. Google also pressed higher. Many of you are in positions. I have a credit spread on this one. Volume is well above average. RSI is rising. Stochastics and MACD are turning, setting you up for potential follow-through this week. As volume continues higher, looking for continuation and volume to pick up on Monday and Tuesday. That said, revenue did grow 13.49% year over year in its most recent report on January 30th. Earnings are growing at a 56.2% clip, with price action and volume suggesting institutions are present and accumulating shares. Microsoft also saw an accumulation of volume on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, The stock is trending 921.50, 200-day all pointed higher. MACD and stochastics, along with RSI, are bullish, with the company reporting revenue growing at 17.58% year over year and earnings growth of 26%, reported in its most recent quarter on January 30th, and not reporting again until April 30th of this year. Microsoft looking pretty strong and trending. NVIDIA, of course, following through, very bullish price action, with the company reporting on the 21st after the close. We won't do anything now with potential day trades as strength persists while the stock hits all-time highs and the FOMO crowd join in. I'm sure we'll be discussing day trades throughout the week, watching for institutional activity into that report next Wednesday. ARM Holdings, earnings last week, volume with price hanging out near all-time highs, and the company beating expectations by 3.57%. We're watching how ARM Holdings trades this week, if we can manage to push a bit higher. Taking another credit spread for a second time with the short 95, long 85 put spread. Looking for price action to stay above the gap and for the moving averages to catch up. RSI showing strength and volume is above average. ELF Beauty and Ulta, both of these are trending higher. ELF reported earnings last week, with the company still showing earnings growth of 54.5%, revenue growth of 84.9%, with both ELF and Ulta showing strength and trending higher. RSI above 70 and trading at all-time highs. A lot of the security stocks also moving higher last week. Zscaler trading at 255. Try to get above 266. Some profit taking came in. Volume is above average, with stochastics and MACD pointing higher, with stocks from the group like Palo Alto Networks trading at highs. 921.50, 200-day are all pointing up and to the right. MACD and stochastics are supportive. RSI is showing muscle, with the cybersecurity ETF showing strength, trading at all-time highs, as we saw last week. Also, CrowdStrike with a doji at highs, volume above average. MACD stochastics supportive, RSI showing muscle. So keep an eye on these cybersecurity stocks, as they're definitely eliciting a lot of attention, with stocks like CyberArk breaking higher last week, reporting earnings on the 8th, beating expectations, with earnings growth and revenue growth, an earnings and revenue surprise, with the company beating expectations by 55.77% and revenue growing 31.90% on a year-over-year basis. Looks like CyberArk and many of these cybersecurity stocks are going to continue being bought up, so keep an eye on those this week as well. Okay, traders, that's going to do it for me. This is Cousin Vinny coming to you from theclosingprint.com with your weekend video newsletter. Mostly bullish indicators. We got a couple of bearish indicators, of course, going into this week, mostly because some of these stocks are a bit at highs, a little overbought, so we could see a little bit of consolidation. Just keep that in mind going into Monday and Tuesday trading. We have a Wednesday VIX expiration and, of course, monthly OPEX on Friday. I'll send out a watch list later tonight around 12 midnight on the East Coast, around 9 o'clock on the West Coast, so be sure to check your inbox for that. Otherwise, enjoy the rest of your weekend. We'll see you in the morning. Ciao.